Yeah, I feel a bit of a fool doing this sort of thing, getting dressed up to go out. I'd never go out if I could get out of it, but I have to tonight. It's the Tourism Awards, and it's important we win the awards to get a higher profile. And I have to do these things. I'd sell my soul to the devil if I had to save a species of a mammal from extinction, and that's what my life's all about, saving species from extinction.
Darling, now you're going to have to change your shoes. You're not going to be able to wear those down.
Aren't I?
No.
Why?
I said so.
They're more comfortable.
Yes, I know. Now, I want it on the second hole. I've got it on the first hole.
You sure it fits through there?
Mm.
So it does. Look at that. Isn't that wonderful?
John doesn't go very far with formality.
True, I'll be formal. No, I won't be very formal at all.
But he's wearing his cat hat, and that's a feral cat from Arkaroola Creek. So he's pretty good. Turn round.
Now this could backfire, it could overdo it, it could shock people too much. You have to shock people a bit to get them to think, but you can overdo it sometimes.
I'll let you wear those home.
Right, okay.
Oh, now we're off, I think.
If we win the award tonight, then everything's worthwhile, and if we get some publicity from wearing this hat, then it'll get us business, and business is what we're about. We have to earn money to do what we do. This is the way you do it. If I wore an akubra, I'd be wearing half a dozen dead rabbits and nobody'd take any notice whatsoever. I wear one cat skin and you get all the attention in the world. So we're playing on the fact that people imagine when they look at my head, they see their pet cat sitting on my head. It's quite bizarre, but that's the way it works.
Category is an attraction demonstrating a good understanding of the link between the preservation of our environment and tourism. And the winner is Warrawong Sanctuary.
Warrawong Sanctuary was set up originally to demonstrate that the biggest single problem our wildlife had in Australia is foxes and cats. And we've built Warrawong. Warrawong's development, it's not conservation, it's development. We've put back all the animals that once lived in the Adelaide Hills, and it's the only place in Australia where you can see the full range of animals living in the wild that once lived there. And people come to see that because they don't know these tiny kangaroos and these animals. So you come and see bettongs and potoroos and bandicoots. It's amazing the numbers of people that are coming. In the last 12 months, we've had 20,000 people come through Warrawong Sanctuary just on our nocturnal walk. Well, welcome to Warrawong Sanctuary and thank you for coming on this glorious morning. This is Warrawong Sanctuary, this little valley here. 20 years ago it was absolutely bare. There wasn't even a blade of grass here, it was an intensive dairy. Since then we've planted over 50,000 trees and shrubs, built over 1 kilometre of creeks and pools and surrounded the whole place by a fox and cat-proof fence. This is the fence, and this fence is Warrawong. It's the most important thing here. It's 2 kilometres long. It was the first working fox and cat-proof fence to be built in Australia. So this area you're standing on now was the first area in Australia to be free of foxes and cats, and that's why these little animals can live here. The difference between this and a zoo is that in a zoo has a fence around which encloses the animals. This fence is an exclosure for foxes and cats. Most of the animals that are inside can climb over this fence without difficulty. Foxes and cats can't get in, and that's what it's all about. If you'd have gone anywhere in Australia 200 years ago, you would have found a full range of kangaroos, from big ones down to tiny little ones. Probably the best known kangaroo in Australia is the red kangaroo. They vary in colour from a grey to a red colour. In eastern Australia the males tend to be red and the females are bluey grey like that. And here they're any colour. There were 10 species of kangaroo in the Adelaide Hills up until 70 or 80 years ago, but the grey's the last one. We had a lovely wallaby called the Tulashee, which was a medium-sized wallaby, which we're only just learning now the foxes have killed. We thought they were big enough for the fox, but the only place you'll find that now is in the museum. This is our Blackwater Lake. This is deep waters, 20 foot deep, 6 metres deep. It was a small farm dam when I came here 22 years ago, and I built this the first year I was here, so it's the oldest water here. Because it's the oldest water here, it's the centre point of our platypus program. We put 3 young female platypus in here 3 years ago, and all 3 are alive and well, and that's the first time that's ever been done in the world. David Flay was the first man to introduce platypus to the world. He in fact bred one in captivity in 1943, and that made him quite a hero.
David Flay moved over to one of the tunnels, opened it up, and hey presto! There was Jack, father of Corrie. Jack, one of the largest platypuses known, has been in captivity for the record time of 12 years. The platypus, like its fellow egg-layer, the spiny anteater, has a slow birth rate, but apparently lives a long while. Jack will give scientists their first definite indication about the age of a platypus. Jack loved the water, but when Jack found there was no food in the pool, he headed back to his dry, comfortable bachelor quarters. Next door, they saw the sanctuary's most treasured possession, Corrie, daughter of Jack. The keeper treated her affectionately, for she was a lovable little thing.
Unfortunately, Corrie didn't last very long. She disappeared soon after emerging from her burrow. David spent the rest of his life trying to repeat it and couldn't. And then since then we've gone more and more artificial, and now we have 6 zoos in Australia that take platypus from the wild and they put them in a glass case. They either die within a few days or they go mad. And the direction we're heading is quite sad, really. What we've done here is quite different. We've set up a bit of Australia as we think platypus would like it, rather than as people would like to see platypus. And it's worked extremely well. Last year we bred 2 young platypus. That's the first time that's happened for 50 years. Platypus have a bill built for finding things in the water. They muzzle round on the bottom among the stones and the rocks and pick up tiny insect life that lives in the bottom. They need plenty of room for this, they need the right conditions for this, and more, they need to be able to retreat when they want to and feed when they want to. And it's very important they be able to carry on their life as they evolve to do. I was fortunate enough to live in the Australian bush north of Sydney in an area before the fox and the cat came there. All these animals lived there. My favourite was the paddy melon. They're the shyest of the kangaroo family, the paddy melons. They were here for 2 years before we even got a glimpse of them. That's how shy they are. I used to get up at midnight when I was 7 to sit on the forest fringe just to see the paddymellons coming back in from feeding. I didn't know what they were, nobody could tell me. My parents said, oh, they're bandicoots. And I said, but they hop. And they said, well, they're hopping bandicoots. My parents were Australians, you see. There's 2 species here. There's the redneck paddymelon, which is one over here on my left, the redneck paddymelon. And there's a couple up there, and there are Tamil wallabies. But they basically filled the same niche in Australia, and it was a very important niche in eastern and southern Australia. But they are the main forest grazers of eastern and southern Australia. It was their job to keep the forest floor clean so that we didn't get big bushfires. We extincted our paddymelons, and then the undergrowth came, and then the big fires came. Now we pretend that big fires are a normal thing in the Australian bush. Of course they're not. We caused them. The potteroo and bettong, they filled the niche of the rabbit in Australia. They were dense right across Australia. They were a very important food source to the Aboriginals. These were the Aboriginals, what the bison was to the American Indian. The potteroos are eating this grain, but the bettongs, the brush-tailed bettongs, are filling up their cheek pouches and taking it off and burying it. They are the seed buriers of Australia. It was their job to bury all our acacia seeds and our quandong seeds and our aeromophila seeds. When we lost our bettongs, we lost a lot of our plants because we'd lost the seed buriers. The brush-tailed bettong was probably the most common kangaroo in Australia 200 years ago. There would have been thousands of millions of them right across Australia. 12 years ago, there was less than 200 left in the world. They're now the world's smallest and rarest living kangaroo. At present, half the world's population lives here at Warrawong. But these are the forgotten animals of Australia, the tiny ones. And these went because of the introduction of the cat. There was an island off the west coast of South Australia, St Francis Island, had a whole species of brush-tailed bettong on it. They took one house cat, one kitchen cat to that island and extincted a whole species of kangaroo with it. Owning a cat in Australia is the single most damaging environmental thing an Australian can do. And this is what conservation today is all about. We got 4 small media articles for winning the awards, being South Australia's top tourist attraction. I think we've got 25 big media articles because I wore this cat hat.
Now let's go to the phones. Our first caller on the line today is Chris. Good afternoon, Chris.
Good afternoon. The business about you not liking rabbits and cats and foxes and deciding that that's a good enough reason to kill all the ones that come across your path, I just wonder how you got the authority to make a decision like that about what lives and what dies in your place.
It's a bit like a creationist arguing with an evolutionist, I suppose, as to who's right and who's wrong on these things. But the fact is that Australia has the worst record in the world for wildlife management. We are extincting species more quickly than the rest of the world put together, and I feel somebody has to do something about that, and I guess I'm the only one that's willing to take up the cudgels on it.
Well, at what point does a wild cat become wildlife? Is a dingo wildlife?
No, it's a feral. No, I guess it's the way that things fit in, that I don't think an Australian is an Australian because of where they're born. I think an Australian is an Australian because of how they fit in with the Australian environment.
Well, you know, there are people around who say that you're just another version of Hitler as far as animals go, and you've got that same attitude to certain animals and take very much the same sort of action against them.
That's right. And there were another group of people that thought Hitler shouldn't be allowed to do what he was doing, wiping out these people, and they took action against him. Now, I'm taking that action. I would put foxes and cats and rabbits in the same class as I put Hitler, and I'm trying to stop them from wiping out these indigenous species. That's right.
This world. Look at it. Hurry up before it collapses.
The world without cats would be a very, very sad place, I think. And I had a woman ring me this week. Her neighbour wants 2 kittens because she's had a cat and it's just died, and the doctor says if she doesn't get another cat soon, she'll have to go into hospital permanently. That's how much importance their doctor attaches to the cats.
I guess the important message that goes with this is do your bit for the environment, go home and hat your cat tonight.
What did he say? That we should go home and make a hat out of our cats? I thought that was revolting for a grown man to say that. I've never met him, but I know what he is because I've had confrontations with him several times.
Bring our time now to 26 minutes past 7. That's our 1 a.m. Let's find out what the weather's going to be like. It's here this morning.
Here you are, my love. How is she this morning?
Thank you. She's good, I think. She's very wide awake.
Quite a pleasant day. We're forecasting a maximum of 20 degrees. Wouldn't be a totally beneficial.
There you go. How's my little girl? This is Sheena. Sheena, who won't put her head out of the bag. And she's very little. She's 210 days. I've got about 30 fully grown kangaroos out there that are all my babies. And I've got Blue, who will be an eternal hobble around my leg, I think, for the rest of my life, or his life. And that's apart from bettongs and quolls and bandicoots and other little animals that have come our way. And I feel particularly confident with marsupials. In fact, they're a joy to rear. And you just got to love. You know, you love. You've got to learn to be nice and gentle. Do you want some milk? When Shane was a baby and about 4 or 5 months old, we got a joey which we called Buster. Buster was about the same age. At that particular point in time, the rivalry was based on Buster trying to outdo Shane. He desperately wanted to be a more accepted member of the family, and I can remember doing the washing in that laundry with Buster hanging onto one leg and Shane as a toddler hanging onto the other leg. And in the end, I think a 9-year-old that doesn't have to share very often found sharing with a kangaroo a pain.
But of course we brainwash our kids, don't we? We buy them a dog and a cat and we teach them to hate the Australian bush. You ask an Australian kid what a marmoset or a panda or an elephant or a giraffe is and they'll tell you they're rare exotic animals. But you ask them what an antechinus or a phascogale or a quoll is, they won't have a clue. They're Australian animals, and we're very careful in Australia not to teach our kids about Australia. We're embarrassed about it all. I'm John, and what we're going to do first is go over and talk to those kangaroos. But there's something very special I want you to do. A lot of school children go through Warrawong to learn what Australia's all about, and that's really all we try to teach them is what Australia's all about. And when you look at it, a future Prime Minister of Australia could be in this group out there now.
Yeah, we can't go down there.
It's very important that sometime soon we end up with a Prime Minister who understands the Australian environment so that the right decisions are made.
Be gentle with her.
Have a good look, because see, that's her foot there. That's her foot. All of that's her foot.
Oh, she's coming there.
Australian children don't understand anything about the Australian environment. So it's very easy to take them. It's just a matter of how you talk to them. We do exactly the same thing with all people that come here, no matter how old they are. It's just with the littlies you talk in their language, that's all. And we go down to the pool and we catch animals for them to look at. And we let them discover this wonderful world that's out there called Australia, and that's what it's all about. They haven't got a net, have they? How would they catch them? They've got a very special mouth that lets them in but doesn't let them out. Very clever. We had a woman come on a walk one night. Prue, in fact, took the walk, and she was one of the people who assisted in demolishing this cottage, and she was very proud of the fact that she'd tidied the place up. It was a tidying up instinct, and quite interesting because we actually tidy up to the degree where our animals can't live there anymore. And part of the reason we've lost a lot of our animals is because we refuse them to have them habitat. It's considered messy, things have to be tidied up, and this was one of them. This house, it was tidied up. It was pulled down simply because it was considered in the 1960s antisocial to leave old buildings up. And the dead wood story here is an interesting one because it's very important that we don't tidy up dead wood, that a whole range of animals need dead wood on the ground to survive. Things like numbats, bilbies, antechinus, phascogale, quoll, bandicoots all need dead wood. So the bush is full of litter, and this litter is where the animals live, and it's very important that we don't tidy up, that we have what some people call a messy place. And we're about to announce a $500,000 research program on our platypus to learn how to keep them in captivity. And the first part of that will be catching them in nets and putting transponders in them so that we can tell them apart and follow their movements. This one's pretty good too, isn't it? See, she's in good nick. Look at that. She's got a number of very important things. I suppose she's got, her bill is the most important thing, and on the bill she's got receptors which pick up electromagnetic radiation, so they can pick up electrical impulses. They've got a sixth sense. There's only two mammals that have that, the echidna and the platypus. Some of the sharks and things have got it, and the bill's quite leathery, and then this is the shield around here. And then she's got eyes and ears are here. The eyes are the front, the ears are right behind the eyes, and she closes them when she goes onto the water. She's going to close them if we're going to be around. Not very big eyes, but quite good eyes. They work quite well. Web feet, and the webs come over the claws, which are quite incredible because most web feet go between the fingers, but these, the web feet go, the web goes quite past the claws, which gives them incredible swimming ability. They swim with their front feet. Their back feet they just use for steerage. Got an incredible fur, which is very warm. They were harvested and exported very heavily in the early days until it was banned. But they got an incredible fur that holds the air and gives them very good insulation. Then their tail, they use the tail for fat storage, and you can measure the condition of a platypus by their tail and basically how it bends. That a platypus like that bends that far, this is probably called about condition 3 if you talk about 1 to 4. If they can get paper thin if they're in poor condition, which is condition 1, and at condition 4 you can't bend it at all, it's just fat. And so she's not in, she's in good condition, but she's not in superb condition.
This kitchen has been home to literally hundreds of different animals at various times, and they have filled every part of our life. They've gone to bed with us when they've needed it, and of course when John was lecturing at Flinders in mathematics, then he would take animals to demonstrate various mathematics that he thought was a valid use of the animals, and in fact took a wombat to one of his algebra classes. Unfortunately, whilst the class seemed to enjoy the lesson, the Vice-Chancellor didn't, and I think his academic career went on a slide from then on.
But I think wombats are one of the most beautiful animals there is. And Blossom agrees with me. They are, in fact, the most intelligent of the marsupials. They have the biggest brain vertebrae ratio of all the marsupials. You can actually see a wombat think if you look at them. That's what she was doing, standing there. Whereas you'll never see, say, a kangaroo think at all, will you? No, you're much cleverer. Probably the most exciting part about this whole venture is the fact that it's funded totally by investment, and people do very well out of it. A dollar invested in Warrawong Sanctuary 5 years ago is being sold for $10 today, and as such I believe we paid a greater total return to shareholders than any other company in Australia. So it just boils down to the fact that if we can find enough people that want to be millionaires, we can save the wildlife of Australia.